Following the July 20th mega flood in Zhengzhou City caused by the release of the upstream Changzhuang Reservoir, the flooding in Henan Province continues. The city of Xinxiang, located 65 kilometers northeast of Zhengzhou, was particularly impacted when the Wei River's embankment was breached. According to Chinese media reports, as of 8 a.m. on July 22nd, Henan Province has 66 large and medium-sized reservoirs over the flood limit. Several reservoirs were in dangerous situations, such as dam floods and pipe surges. To ensure the safety of the reservoirs, several large and medium-sized reservoirs such as Zhaopingtai, Yahekou, Zhaowan, and Xiaonanhai were released. The capacity of these large and medium-sized reservoirs are all greater than 100 million cubic meters. A large number of floods caused many rivers to burst their banks, and the resulting floods caused serious disasters in Henan Province. Officials reported that as of 4 a.m. on the 22nd, 3 million people were affected in Henan Province. 33 people died and 8 people were missing, and a total of 376,000 people were transferred to emergency shelters. In the past few days, Xinxiang City suffered the heaviest rainfall since the start of meteorological records, with maximum sustained precipitation of 907 millimeters. On the night of July 21st, a 2-hour rainfall of 267.4 millimeters was measured at the weather station in the northern part of the city in Muye District. According to the weather forecast, the heavy rainfall will continue in Henan Province. Heavy rainfall caused the water level of rivers and reservoirs in Xinxiang to rise, and on July 22nd, 7 medium-sized reservoirs in Xinxiang overflowed. The water level of many rivers, such as Weihe River in the northeast and the Communist Channel in the northwest, exceeded safe water levels. At 10 p.m. on July 22nd, the Xinxiang City section of Wei River broke its embankment. A large amount of floodwater rushed into Xinxiang City and surrounding villages and towns. Officials say they are urgently rescuing people and have safely transferred nearly 9,000 people, with 19,000 still in the process of emergency transfer. From a video taken by netizens on the 22nd, the depth of water at Xinxiang Maternity and Child Healthcare Hospital has reached about 50 centimeters, with many cars submerged in water. A large bright red banner above the main entrance of the hospital reads, "Warmly celebrating the 100th anniversary of the founding of the Chinese Communist Party," in big letters. Inside the hospital foyer, the water was already about 30 centimeters deep. At Xinxiang High-Speed Railway East Station, the water on the road is more than 1.5 meters deep, and many vehicles are underwater, with only their roofs visible. Multiple villages and towns near Xinxiang City also flooded, and many people climbed onto the roof of houses waiting for rescue. A netizen posted, "Xinxiang emergency. Xinxiang Wei River embankment broke. Weihui County is flooding. 33 villages are flooded, with the majority of the village being the elderly and children." Many villagers are trapped and were not rescued, and the local rescue team is not enough. They are in urgent need of assistance and supplies. Due to the flood discharge in the north of Xinxiang, the situation in Fengquan District, Weihui County, and Muye District is very critical. Please share, looking for more support. At 5 a.m. on July 23rd, Xintown of Xun County, located 30 kilometers downstream of Xinxiang City, released its floodwater, and the Wei River embankments were breached about 1.5 kilometers downstream of the town on the morning of the 23rd. Some villagers were trapped on the riverbank. Locals filled several carloads of rocks and dropped them into the riverbank gap in order to block the flood, but it was no use. Currently, Ho Village and Sinan have been flooded, and water levels are still rising. Situated west of the Weihe River is the Communist Channel, which has also been flooded, and many villages sandwiched between the two rivers are in critical condition. Many netizens have gone online to ask for help. Look at our Xun County. Upstream has to release the floodwaters, and now the downstream Xun County needs to discharge its flood, leaving many people homeless. They've lost their beloved homes and farmland. My hometown, Xun County, needs urgent help. Many villages near Xun County are also in danger. A big thank you to those who took these video clips. It is unknown whether they are safe or even still alive. Without them risking their lives to take these videos and breaking through China's internet censorship to share them, the outside world may never have known the truth of what is really happening in China. An official of the Henan Provincial Department of Water Resources said in an interview with the media that there are more than 2,000 reservoirs in Henan province. Because the rain ban is currently moving, some reservoirs that have exceeded warning levels are being discharged, and afterwards it can return to the floodline. If there is another rainfall, there may be another reservoir that exceeds the floodline water level. The reporter asked what impact the discharge would have on the downstream. The official said, "The situation downstream of each reservoir is different, but also varies with the size of the discharge and the downstream river channel. The transfer and resettlement work of downstream people is in progress. The number of people affected by the disaster and property losses have not been totaled. The localities have been notified and reported, but there is no summary yet." So why is it that when it rains heavily, reservoirs all over the country are discharging floodwater, aggravating the situation? Isn't one of the purposes of building reservoirs to prevent floods and fight droughts? Especially now when there are so many weather satellites with more accurate forecasts, why don't these reservoirs empty their water beforehand and play its role in flood prevention? In May 2002, China's Ministry of Water Resources issued a document titled "On Strengthening the Safety Management of Small Reservoirs," which reads, "The various responsibilities of small reservoir safety management must have a clear party responsible. The main body responsible for the safety management of small reservoirs include the corresponding local government, water administrative authority, reservoir authority, or reservoir owner and management unit." According to documents from the Ministry of Water Resources, as long as the small reservoirs are built in accordance with the prescribed process, it may be collectively owned by rural areas, or be owned by individuals. As long as they meet certain qualifications and technical standards, individuals can obtain the right to operate the reservoir. At present, the operating rights of small and medium-sized reservoirs throughout China are almost all leased to companies or individuals for power generation, tourism, and fish farming. Sources from various reservoir management offices revealed that almost none of these operators are willing to empty the reservoir before the arrival of floods, because to them, water is money. If the reservoir is emptied, the fish farms, tourists, and electricity generation will all go down. The government doesn't give subsidies, yet they'll have to pay the government contract fees. Therefore, when the government orders the emptying of reservoirs, although they have to follow orders, they're only doing it for show and slowly release the water. Only when the water levels rise do they increase the discharge rate. If the reservoir is about to overflow, then all the spillways will open, and the downstream will be flooded. Currently, almost none of the small and medium-sized reservoirs would empty themselves before a flood. And the local government, in the face of economic interests, would turn a blind eye. In the end, the losses will fall onto the people downstream. Of course, the people who can get the right to operate these reservoirs are obviously not your typical citizen, so they'll have ties to government officials. In 2002, China had a power shortage of 20.35 million kilowatts. That year, the State Council approved the construction of 400 rural hydropower counties during the 10th five-year plan. All over the country, reservoirs and small hydropower stations were built. Many local governments believed that small hydropower stations not only bring local GDP and fiscal revenue growth, but can also greatly boost the local economy and solve local power supply problems. According to the Sichuan Water Resources Department in 2020, there were 5,025 small hydropower stations in Sichuan. Wang Hua, then Deputy Director of the Sichuan Water Resources Department, said 4,242 small hydropower stations have caused water shortage in some rivers. These stations have been one of the important factors in limiting the ecology of rivers. But the construction of these reservoirs and hydropower stations not only caused damage to the ecological environment, but also brought major hidden dangers to flood control. Some water experts said that if the reservoirs are densely constructed, then once the flood comes, if one reservoir collapses upstream, its floodwaters will quickly rush downstream and destroy the dams of downstream reservoirs. More water will then accumulate, causing a domino effect of dam failures. Water resources expert Wang Weiluo said that in August 1975, 62 reservoirs, including the Banqiao Reservoir in Henan Province, collapsed, resulting in 240,000 unnatural deaths, a typical domino effect. China has 98,000 reservoirs of all sizes, of which more than 95% are earth and rock-filled dams, and more than 95% are old dams built before the 1980s. China's Ministry of Water Resources said last year that 73% of reservoir dams are unsafe. Not only that, a large amount of floodwater rushes into rivers after reservoir discharges, causing river levels to soar, which can lead to breaches of embankment and dikes, triggering bigger floods. In addition, many rivers are not managed properly, resulting in the river being silted and narrowing the river. Especially the rivers flowing through the city, which are favored by real estate developers because of the beautiful scenery. They are keen to build houses on the riverbank and encroach on the river, causing the flood discharge capacity of the river to be greatly reduced. The flooding in Zhengzhou this time was precisely caused by the release of the Changzhuang Reservoir upstream without warning, which caused a large amount of floodwater to rush into the Jialu River flowing through Zhengzhou city, resulting in surging water levels in the river, flooding the city.